talking about the Golden Go just yet. I have a feeling when you're facing off against a Calyrex Ice Rider, you're probably going to want to bring your Golden Go to the
look
field.
At that, Gabby. It's almost like you know what you're talking about. Let's have a look here.
It's almost like I spoke to Stefan earlier and asked him how to approach this matchup. Mind you, the Ogerpon wasn't on the field at that point in time, but we do have this incredible start with Calyrex Ice Rider, Ogerpon versus Tornadus and Golden Go.
Absolutely. So there's a lot going on here, Gabby. Let's try and break down as much of it as we can before the players lock in their moves. Goldango is exerting enormous pressure. With the choice specs, it can just do absolutely massive amounts of damage. It does not have a Terra type that can boost itself, but that's fine. Calyrex under pressure here from the Terra Steel, or for the Make It Rain. Follow Me, not going to be able to protect it. However, Calyrex is Terra Water, and so we might be seeing an early terrestrialization out of this Calyrex in order to ensure that it can, not take too much from Make It Rain. The question then is, will Goldango kind of call it and potentially go for a trick? I actually really like this move from Craig here, who's saying, hey, your Goldango is choice specs. I don't want to accidentally end up taking a trick. So what I'm going to do is protect with both my Pokemon and just confirm that you're locking into Make It Rain or Trick before you go for it. And actually, Gabby, what do you make of this Tailwind in the face of potential Trick Room?
So Tailwind here to try and ensure that Golden Go can outspeed that Ogerpon, but will not be able to connect any damage with the Shadow Ball thanks to that spiky shield. Honestly, I really like the idea of locking in your Terrestrialization on Calyrex this early, only because you know that Stefan has Kyogre as his restricted pick. I mean, yes, it's early on, but it doesn't seem like it would be a bad decision in the long run.
Yeah, I agree. Really, the only Pokemon you'd have to watch out for is that Sarina, who isn't even necessarily guaranteed to come here. We can guess that one of the Pokemon on the back for Stefan is Kyogre because you typically want to bring your restricted Pokemon, so we'll have to see here. I think a big question is Craig going to bother setting up Trick Room, or do they want to just go for Glacial Lance? We've seen how strong Glacial Lance can be just right out of the gate, but this is a bit of a surprise to me. Goldango switching out, it wasn't inherently threatened by all that much, and Kyogre switching in here, so Stefan is definitely making some predictions here. My guess is that this is going to be Bleak Wind Storm coming out, but I mean, really, who can say? Glacial Lance could be very, very threatening here, as we do see the Terrestrialization from, I'll go ahead and say it, this is probably Calyrex.
You had to wait just a split second longer, my friend, because Tornadus just happens to be the faster Pokemon.
Calyrex terrestrializes. Well, we got there in the end. Terra Steel makes sense. You don't want to lose your Tornadus to the Glacial Lance, but okay, Gabby, you take it from here.
You were right. You just had to wait just a little bit longer there, but you're absolutely right. With the Steel-type terrestrialization on that Tornadus to ensure that it will not be taking super effective damage from the Glacial Lance. Hurricane with the rain up on the field is now 100% accurate. One of the most powerful flying-type moves in the game, able to one-shot the opposing Ogerpon. Calyrex does set up the Trick Room, though, so this Kyogre will have to weave in an opportunity to attack, knowing that it's likely Amoonguss is going to come out on the field to take advantage of the Trick Room, take advantage of the Terrestrialization already being in play, and really be able to connect to some Spores.
Yeah, there's a couple things worth noting here.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm surprised to see Pelipper here too, but this is a more offensive option, allowing Craig to make better use of the Trick Room turns. This is another case where a player has Terrestrialized and it ends up not being especially effective. You know what I mean? Where like Terra Steel was not actually needed that turn. It makes sense to go for. I don't think it was a bad move by any means, but it wasn't actually necessary. And now there's no option for Terra Grass on the Kyogre eventually to get around the Amoonguss. It is interesting though, because neither of these Pokemon are in danger of being KO'd from a single attack, right? Like, Kyogre's not in danger from a double attack. Tornadus would probably, I don't think High Horsepower will take a KO in one hit on the Torn, though I could be wrong about that. But yeah, neither of these Pokemon are really in danger. We have the Wide Guard Mind Game going on to potentially block Kyogre's powerful Water-type moves like Water Spout and Origin Pulse, leaving only Ice Beam. But like, of course, like then you're not doing damage. So this is probably going to be protecting both Pokemon. Stefan wants to stall out not only the Trick Room, but also his own Tailwind because it ended up not being very effective. So we are going to get a turn of Breathing Room. It is worth noting, though, that this is also stalling out the Rain. We still have 3 turns left after this one, so it's not like an immediate danger of ending, but it could change things quite a bit if the Rain ends before the Pokemon are kind of ready for, or while Kyogre is still on the field, excuse me.
Yeah, and Calyrex as well, is still able to hit that Tornadus super effectively now that it's terrestrialized into a Steel type. It now makes contact with the ground, which means High Horsepower is just as valid of a play as a potential Glacial Lance here. I really like that, honestly, because you can go on the offense, you can guarantee a 2-hit knockout on both these Pokemon, and you know that you can only protect so many times. I think Stefan almost has to risk a double protect here, or switch to try and find some more time.
Yeah, it's really tricky because the combination of Glacial Lance and Weather Ball is threatening, but so is the combination of High Horsepower and Hurricane, right?
Exactly,
and so it's kind of hard to switch. I think the only downside of protecting both Pokemon is that Stefan basically said, hey, you know my Tornadus is now vulnerable, and ordinarily I would say Torn, with its like bulky, can probably take a Weather Ball. With a Life Orb, I don't know. I mean, I think this might actually get the KO. It's being boosted by Rain, being boosted by the Life Orb. And yeah, Tornadus just goes down in one hit. So the question is, did Stefan call that the Wide Guard was not coming out here and instead commit to Water Spout or Origin Pulse, or did he feel pressure to lock an Ice Beam? Because he needs to get damage on this Calyrex at some point, or else like a second Trick Room won't be able to be stopped. And it is just the Ice Beam, which is going to do about half of Pelipper's remaining HP, and there is no freeze. So Tailwind has ended, but there's still 2 turns of Trick Room left, which means even with the Protect on both Pokemon, and we do see Chen Pao as the last. Gabby, it's going to be really hard to get through this Calyrex. Like it's not impossible, but yeah. Also, sorry, just last thing. We are seeing the Sword of Ruin actually work against Stefan, where now Calyrex is even scarier because of that Sword of Ruin.
Exactly. I mean, that's the kind of risk you have to take, though. I would assume if I saw Pelipper go on the offense the first turn, I wouldn't necessarily assume my opponent would go on the offense a second turn.
They're not going to do it twice, surely.
Exactly. Just knowing that how big a potential Water Spout or an Origin Pulse would be in this situation. So I got to respect the Ice Beam play from Stefan there. Does have the opportunity now to protect at least a little bit longer to try and find more time, but, you know, is going to have to struggle a bit here. Could also try and go for a Sucker Punch onto the Pelipper if you think it's going to keep attacking, but then, again, it has Protect, it has Wide Guard, it doesn't need to go on the offense.
Yeah, that's right. We are seeing Protect. This is probably going to be from both Stefan's Pokemon, though not confirmed. Yeah, that is.
Yeah.
Just this is the 4th turn of Trick Room. It's also the 4th turn of Rain, so one more turn will follow for both effects, but I mean, really, I think we're going to run into problems with getting rid of this Calyrex. We know that Gholdengo's the last Pokemon, but it needs probably, I don't know exactly how much, but I feel like Calyrex has to be below like 50% in order to be able to pick up a KO with the Shadow Ball. So also you have to keep in mind that if at any point like Calyrex gets a KO, it's going to become very threatening. So yeah, it's kind of hard to say. Like, this is not over, but the Trick Room has just been so good for Craig and so bad for Stefan.
I will say that the fact that the Pelipper protected the previous turn does mean that Wide Guard is not guaranteed this turn.
I think that's actually, they've changed the mechanics. Protected to Wide Guard is fine. It's the other way around. Wide Guard into Protect doesn't work. But yeah, like if you're Stefan here, you can like kind of go for Sucker Punch and Ice Beam to say either Sucker Punch will get the KO or Ice Beam will, but yeah, like there are some downsides as well because you really want to be getting damage on Calyrex and dealing with the Pelipper is not the main point. Pelipper switching out here into Amoonguss. Let's see what Stefan went for.
Chen Pao does have a Focus Sash on its side as well here, so if it wants to try and rely on some more consistent damage, could go straight for a Sacred Sword, but instead Sucker Punch into what is now an Amoonguss will not work. Glacial Lance connecting with both of Stefan's Pokemon.
Oh my goodness.
Does a little bit of damage, but it's starting to add up. Ice Beam into the Amoonguss does a good amount of damage, but now with Rain running out on the field, Trick Room is now done, and Calyrex is at full health.
Yeah, this is looking very, very, very scary. The thing is that, like, okay, the good news is that Pelipper will reset the Rain for Kyogre. The bad news is there's no way to stop Trick Room.
Yep.
Like, with the Terra Water actually showing how valuable it is here. We've seen Terra Grass before as well on stream. Terra Water is so good here because it's not weak to the like these ice moves, right? And so there's really no punish for Protect Amoonguss, set up Trick Room, and then you can just side Pollen Puff and Glacial Lance. Like, there's nothing stopping it. You could also even Rage Powder this turn if you wanted. There's going to be a Protect from Chen Pao, probably hoping that this, actually, I'm not even entirely sure. Yeah, like your positioning is really, really, really not very ideal here. So it is going to be an Ice Beam to the Amoonguss. Good play from Craig. I think Stefan basically realizes that he needs Craig to make a mistake in order to win this game because like there's no answer for Water type Calyrex here. I think that I mentioned this earlier, but I feel like a big part of these competitive games is identifying what are the correct Pokemon to bring, and I think this was a case where like I feel like Stefan really needed Sarina here because even though it's so weak against the Calyrex, like at least you can damage it once it's terastallized, you know?
Exactly. And the other thing to keep in mind as well is that I think Craig did a very smart thing where he kind of waited for Trick Room.
Yeah,
like a lot of times in Regulation F, for example, Trick Room teams found success when they saved Trick Room for the final 2 Pokemon. And in this case, Calyrex was one of the first Pokemon, but it was able to just stay on the field long enough to mean it was able to play towards this late Trick Room endgame. And while Sucker Punch is finally able to hit its mark against that Calyrex, and while Spore doesn't put the Kyogre to sleep this turn, High Horsepower also missing the KO on Chen Pao. Stefan is just slowly running out of options in this game number 1.
Yeah, actually, ironically, I'm not even sure if surviving there was bad for Craig, because you just your Glacial Lance plus side Pollen Puff play is so safe here, and there's not really a way to punish it. Like it's just like your options are so limited. And we're really seeing the strength of Calyrex Ice here, which is that it's got this incredible ball of stats with the defensive Terror type. It's either normally able to weather Pokemon outside of Terrestrialization or with using it, and then at a certain point, like you can't really make predictions around Glacial Lance. You know what I mean? Like it will hit both Pokemon, and if you don't have tools to deal with it, like Kyogre should be a good Pokemon to deal with Calyrex Ice's Glacial Lance. It resists it. Glacial Lance is 3-hit KOing Kyogre, and Kyogre has done 0 damage in exchange. Going for the double protect here is Kyogre. Sucker Punch critical hit is not going to get out of it. Sucker Punch comes into the Amoonguss though. Oh, that's a way back into it. Hang on a second.
Stopping the side Pollen Puff, and also denying a at least initial chilling Nay boost onto that Calyrex. Unfortunately, though, now that Glacial Lance is a single target attack, I think, or also high horsepower is going to be enough to deal damage to pick up the knockout on that Kyogre. And now with Goldengo as Stefan's final Pokemon cannot protect as it's holding Choice Specs, you're going to have to hope to find some opportunity to weave in what is going to have to be a very powerful Shadow Ball.
Yeah, I think that at this point there's actually a guaranteed win. There are 2 turns of Trick Room left. Even though Goldengo is at full HP, Pelipper is most likely slower. We can see here that it's got a lot of training in its HP stat, and so like it's most likely slower than its Goldengo. It's intended as a Trick Room attacker, so you don't even need to risk high horsepower. You can go for exactly. I love this play.
Yeah.
Glacial Lance is probably gonna do enough damage. This is +1 single target. Oh, it's not very effective. Goldengo can tank this. Bop, over half your health. Bye-bye, Goldengo. And Pelipper is gonna finish the job, but honestly, it wasn't even needed. Calyrex could have pretty much, at some point, Calyrex could have soloed this game on its own. And that was with Stefan doing a good job of managing the chilling Nay boost. Like, it didn't even run away with chilling Nay boost. It just ran away because the horse, like, he opened the stables and the horse just ran out and said, oh, I guess I got this whole pasture of delicious Pokemon to feast on. So, yeah, Calyrex Ice, my other 2 games that I cast were Calyrex Ice versus something else, and Calyrex Ice won both of those, and it might be another story just like that, I think.
All right, so what I'm hearing is next time you're on the mic, just don't pull Calyrex Ice.
That's right.
Duly noted. Congratulations to Craig for taking game number 1. I also just really loved how he approached this matchup in terms of his Pokemon matchup, because you lead the Ogerpon to ensure that if your opponent led Kyogre, you have that as a big threat. You have the Pelipper in the back, so that if there's a late game Serena, or even if there's a lead Serena, as that's what a lot of these Kyogre players like to play, you have that Hurricane option of your own. It just felt like he was one step ahead in the matchup, and again, the early terrestrialization on the Calyrex as well, just making sure that that horse was able to stick around and go to pasture in the way that it chose.
Yeah, I think that for Stefan, to me, what jumps out is, number 1, there wasn't a way to hit the Terra Water. There aren't really great ways to hit Terra Water Calyrex in this team in general, but I think Serena is one of the only ones that you do have, so you should think about it. The other was the use of Goldengo, right? Goldengo looks so threatening in the lead. Like,
Sorry, he went O, so then I went O. Continue.
So yeah, Goldengo, like, it looks so threatening in the lead. Specs Make It Rain was threatening into Ogerpon, Trick was threatening into Calyrex, but with that great defensive turn 1 of just protecting both so that you couldn't get caught out with like either a Trick or a Make It Rain without being like knowing what was coming. Which opened up for a turn 2 like Trick Room. I thought that was just so smart, and like the weakness of Specs Goldengo is that you have to telegraph what you want to do if your opponent's willing to burn their protects, which is like a generally pretty safe strategy, and Stefan doesn't have a clear way to punish it. So, I mean, we could see Urshifu come here as an adjustment. Like, it's not super great, but it at least resists the Glacial Lance. But yeah, I don't know. Like, it's just pretty tough because it seemed like in Trick Room, Stefan didn't really have great tools, even like not even accounting for the fact that he set Stefan set Tailwind up, which didn't help at all in the matchup, and then like that was hard as well. But even without Tailwind being factored in, like Calyrex Ice is the slowest Pokemon. Looks like Pelipper is going to underspeed pretty much everything on this team. So yeah, I think it's kind of tough. Not that it's not doable, but I think that Stefan needs to really punish Craig on the turn that Craig goes for Trick Room, or else like I think that this is going to be really difficult. Like, I wouldn't even mind seeing Tornadus Kyogre just try to get a lot of like damage out right away, to be honest.
Yeah, and that was actually something I wanted to bring up. You know, I think that one of the tough decisions with Serena, with Tornadus, is do you run Taunt?
Yeah.
And this matchup is exactly where you want to have Taunt, so that you can stop the Trick Room on your opposing Calyrex, you can stop a Amoonguss from going for Spores or Rage Powders. We're going to just play back the leads, though, from game number 1 here. No adjustments on the field yet. So if there are any adjustments, it's going to be either in play style or in the back. Yeah, I think one thing that's scary here is that Hurricane is only 70% accurate, right? So one thing I could suggest is say, okay, well, maybe you Terra Steel your Tornadus, you lock into Hurricane, and you trick the Calyrex, right? And say, okay, if you lock into Glacial Lance, both my Pokemon resist, and if you lock into, like, High Horsepower, then I have Pokemon in the back that can deal with it. But the thing about that is that Hurricane can miss, and you can end up very, very out of position and potentially risk losing the game right away. So no Terrestrialization, it's just a double protect from both Pokemon. We'll have to see how this plays out. Yeah, and I think it's really wise for Craig to scout out the play here from Stefan 2 games in a row. You know, knowing if your opponent locked into Trick or not, I think really does depend or makes you change how you're going to approach this. Instead, we do see Hurricane and Shadow Ball from Stefan as the start, trying to get as much damage down on the field as possible. Yeah, I think that's something that could have been interesting is leading with Kyogre and then immediately just switching into Tornadus turn 1 to get the rain up, and maybe you still catch that double protect play, and then you actually have some more ground. But this isn't so bad, right? He didn't lock in to make it rain, so Terra Water is not going to, you know, really nullify the damage. Same thing with Trick, which would bank a lot in hitting a Hurricane. So the question here is it going to be Trick Room again, or is it going to be Glacial Lance? Because if Stefan burns the Terra and there's no Trick Room, then and there is Trick Room, then it's a huge disadvantage. But if he just kind of grits his teeth and bears it and says, I think you're going for Trick Room, and doesn't Terra, then it can be a big advantage. So we'll have to see here. Craig is obviously deciding to lock in here. There is a Terrestrialization, and I would love to wait and see which Pokemon is Terrestrializing, because it could be either of them, but it's the Calyrex, it's not Tornadus. So we do see the adjustment being made here. Again, you just had to wait a little bit longer, and you would have been perfect. What is not perfect, though, is the fact that Ogerpon has Follow Me and is able to redirect both attacks. Here comes the Hurricane.
Maybe not both attacks.
It is enough to pick up the KO onto that Ogerpon in one hit. So was able to land that through the accuracy. We do see now the Shadow Ball connect with the Calyrex Ice Rider, but I think we know this is going to do a lot of damage, but it's not going to do enough damage. And now Stefan once again has to find his way through Trick Room. Yeah, but this is a significantly better position than the last game. Tornadus' Terra has not been used. Goldango is actually pretty threatening and will not go down from a single hit of High Horsepower, most likely. Like, this is just such a better position compared to last game, and that damage on Calyrex is very important, because eventually Water Spout obviously is resisted by the Terra Water Calyrex, but Water Spout from Kyogre is just such a powerful attack, even Origin Pulse, that while it probably wouldn't pick up the KO from here, it would do probably around 40% more, and yeah, all this damage really just matters a lot. So once again, we do see Pelipper being brought in here. Actually, one small thing is that the presence of Pelipper allows Craig to activate the rain maybe before Stefan would want, where if Kyogre comes in now, the rain timer won't be reset. But first they have to find a way through this Goldango plus Tornadus combination. There could be a Terra used this turn, but I also wouldn't be surprised to see either play, or to see Stefan hold it still. Yeah, this Goldango does have access to Terra Water, in case anybody at home is curious, and with a Terrestrialization this turn, I say, it's actually the Tornadus. Yeah. So, see, it got me this time. Yeah. Well, you waited. That's because you're a pro. I'm still a rookie over here. The trick is just to make your words last longer and longer until really you get through the animation. So Terra Steel does mean that this Glacial Lance will be resisted on both Pokemon on the field. I think Goldango might tank this. It's going to be a Weather Ball. It's going to connect. And it is actually enough to pick up that KO. That's the value of Life Orb. We're so used to seeing Pelipper with these defensive items. Of course, though, Tornadus is firing back with a Hurricane. Which target will it choose? It is into the Calyrex, not into the Pelipper. This probably isn't enough for a KO, but it gets pretty low. That's within Sucker Punch range, though, I think. That's right. And great call, Gabby. I thought maybe Shenpao would stay behind for the Serena, but no, it's Shenpao switching in. And now there's actually something of a pin here, where there's only 3 turns of Trick Room left, which is still a lot, but Hurricane into Pelipper and Sucker Punch into Calyrex will punish if Amoonguss is the final Pokemon like it was last game, and there we do see it here, and it's kind of hard to handle this. And Pelipper, even though it's trained at its HP, it's still not the most bulky Pokemon, so it's possible for maybe a Hurricane to pick up a KO after another turn of Life Orb. This is a much better position from Stefan. It is, and I really like how Calyrex in the red is just the amount of threatening you want to have on it in this position. Yeah. Because I think if it had more health, obviously, you would have to worry about it attacking this turn, but there is that big question now for Craig. Like, do I keep it on the field? Do I try to protect it this turn and stall out my own Trick Room? Goodness. How do I position the Amoonguss next to it to heal? But it's just a Sucker Punch to pick up the KO onto Calyrex. So that is a really surprising play, obviously, because we know that Sucker Punch is threatening a KO on Calyrex, and so maybe those of you at home are surprised to see that. But I actually really like that play from Craig, though. Pelipper!
Kyogre, what are you doing? How are you so
best.
strong? You're supposed to be a support Pokemon. Oh my goodness, Tornadus should be bulky. As I was saying. That might look surprising because you think, okay, well, like, you can just protect Calyrex, like, maybe go for a Weather Ball, but I think Craig probably identified that they were behind there and decided to make a prediction, saying, you know what, this might not work, but if it does work, I can potentially win the game. And now, I mean, it is a 2 against 2. Like, this game is not over, and even though Pelipper normally you'd prefer to have 2 legendary Pokemon against a Mushroom and a Pelican, but with 2 turns of Trick Room left, because of the way these turns have played out, and because like there was no double protect that last turn from Stefan, there's no easy way through the rest of Trick Room, and with Spore and Hurricane and Weather Ball, like it's actually like not super clear how Stefan is supposed to get through the rest of Trick Room. Like if Trick Room weren't up, of course the advantage would be in his favor, but like can he get through Trick Room without losing too much ground? It's actually kind of difficult, I think.
Yeah, Kyogre could potentially go for a Terra Grass to try and avoid the Spore, but then you're taking super effective Hurricane damage.
Yeah.
Chien-Pao has access to the Stellar-type Terra, which would be great if you land an Ice-type attack against that Amoonguss, but you're going to have to try to avoid a Spore first, so we'll see how these players predicted here.
That's right, and actually, Pelipper setting up the rain instead of Kyogre could end up being a pretty big deal, as we do have a passive turn of Stefan, stills off the penultimate turn of Trick Room, but not the ultimate turn of Trick Room. And you're right, that there are still 2 defensive Terra options on Stefan's side. Stellar, to me the question is, does Terra Stellar Sucker Punch pick up Pelipper from this range? I don't know the answer. It might depend on if Chien-Pao is adamant or jolly nature, raising its attack or speed. Terra Grass Kyogre could also be a big deal here, as the only damaging move on this Amoonguss is that Pollen Puff, so maybe you go Terra Grass and you Ice Beam into the Pelipper and just accept that like 2 Ice Beams will take it out and maybe Kyogre can 1v1 the Amoonguss, but these are both good options, but they both have a potential punish, right? Like,
exactly.
There's not a safe way through this, and yeah, if Trick Room had just ended that last turn, this whole game would be different, but it didn't. And we have to keep in mind the rain is ending in 2 turns as well, which hurts both Pelipper and Amoonguss, as I'm actually, Pelipper and Kyogre here. I'm shocked to see no Sucker Punch here, as a double up comes out from this Pelipper and Amoonguss picking up the KO on Chien-Pao, and no Terra from Stefan's side.
He actually already Terra'd that Tornadus earlier on. Remember? I know, I had to check my notes on that one, too.
I should have written that down. That's my bad.
It happens. It happens to us all. And also what happens is no freeze on that Pelipper. So this poor Kyogre needs to find a way through the Amoonguss, through the Pelipper. I think that Craig has just played a very excellent game against Stefan. Unfortunately, just not really the matchup that Stefan wanted to hit with this team.
Well, this isn't over, actually, because there's a lot of mind games. If Kyogre goes for Ice Beam and Pelipper attacks, then Kyogre wins, because if Kyogre takes out Pelipper, then Kyogre wins the game.
Yes.
So Stefan can go for Rage Powder, but then Kyogre go for Water Spout, and then Pelipper would go down. So Pelipper can go for Wide Guard, but then if Stefan goes for Ice Beam, and also they can both protect. So here's the protect from Kyogre, trying to call out the protect from the Pelipper, and actually this doesn't look flashy. It's just a Hurricane from the Pelipper into the Kyogre. This play might win Craig the game, because now there isn't really a good way for Stefan to protect from Pelipper and Spore into Kyogre, because he just desynced his protect turns. Now Pelipper can actually protect, and there's the rain ending, hurting both of these Pokemon, but I would say maybe hurting Kyogre a little bit more.
I agree. I mean, it's unfortunate that Hurricane is no longer accurate, and also Weather Ball loses the boost it gets from having weather on the field. But at the end of the day, there is still an Amoonguss on the field who can Spore, but it can also freeze.
No.
Just not now.
Kyogre falling asleep, but this game still isn't over. Like,
it's not.
Hurricane is only 70% accurate, as we mentioned. Amoonguss can Pollen Puff up Pelipper to keep it alive, but with a Hurricane miss, with a 1-turn sleep, like, there's so much that can still happen in this game. Like, obviously, Amoonguss and Pelipper are, like, probably in a somewhat favored position with Pollen Puff, but like they're not that safe, you know?
Exactly, and I really like how Craig is prioritizing healing the Pelipper for that reason, because the Pelipper is gonna be your main damage dealer if it can land Hurricanes.
This is going to come down to sleep turns. This is going to come down to Hurricane connections. It's going to come down to some reads. I think, like, Craig is thinking about going for Protect here, but I feel like you're actually kind of behind with that Hurricane miss, so I feel like you might just want to keep kind of up the offensive pressure. Like, it's a 1 in 3 chance for Kyogre to wake up here. Craig will be going for, it's considering locking in Protect. It's hard. I feel like if you're kind of already behind, you need to take the risk. Something we haven't talked about, Gabby, is Hurricane can confuse.
It can,
That can make things a lot more volatile. So Craig really considering whether or not he wants to bank on Kyogre staying asleep, or if he thinks he can do it without it. So let's see here.
It's a very tough decision, because at the end of the day, you're sort of asking yourself, what luck are you hoping on? Are you hoping on Hurricane connecting?
Connects.
So you get this one, but if you get the confusion, is that
goodness.
something that you're going to have to worry about? Are you going to have to worry about your Pelipper getting frozen from an Ice Beam potentially in the future? It's great information for us to see just how much damage that Hurricane did. I mean, that's a half of that Kyogre's health.
Yeah, and now you can see, like, I didn't realize it was going to do that much damage. Kyogre's very specially, like, bulky, so you would expect it to take a reasonable, like not take it that badly, but yeah, with the Life Orb boosting the damage and Hurricane's high base power, yeah, it actually takes a ton of damage here. So I think if Kyogre can't wake up this turn, this game is probably over, realistically. Craig deciding to lock in Protect. This is a very safe play, saying, if you don't wake up, I get guaranteed damage with Leather Ball. If you do wake up and you target a Moongus, 3 turns of sleep. And that, Gabby, that might be close to sealing it, to be honest. As we see Weather Ball come out, it's not going to do that much damage. This is a very low base power move. That didn't do very much. Wait, hang on a second.
I was going to say, like, how many Weather Balls are you going to need to offset the Hurricane? I mean, I like that little bit of chip damage because assuming that was a damage roll to hit the 50%, you've basically locked it into the guaranteed knockout range. But still, now you're worried about luck. You can redirect attack, that's one way around it, but we could potentially see a wake up here.
Yeah, guaranteed wake up here.
We could see an Origin Pulse here.
Oh, yeah.
It's just going to be Ice Beam into that Amoonguss for the knockout. So big question here is, will Hurricane hit?
Critical hit, but it's too late. This is what it comes down to. Amoonguss goes down 70% of the time. This Pelipper will connect. Does it connect? It connects. Will it KO, though?
Here it comes.
Oh,
it is enough to pick up that knockout.
Says, you know who I think the better rain setter is, Gabby? I think that it's Pelipper. I never thought I'd see the day where Pelipper not 1v1, but took down a Kyogre with only itself from full HP. That was a wild turn of events, and unfortunately, yeah, Kyogre couldn't keep up. It looked like a difficult matchup as we saw.